Absolutely. If you watch the 7-iron and we get the wind wrong, I'm in the water. I don't think you understand how frustrating that is.
Let's be honest. Does Scottie Scheffler need me to tell him it's an 8-iron? Why does the best golfer in the world need the 500,000th best golfer in the world to consult him on what club it is?
Scottie Scheffler is known as one of the calmest players in golf. But don't let that fool you. Since joining forces with Cadie Tedd Scott at the end of 2021, they've become arguably the most successful player-caddie partnership in golf. Together, they've won multiple major championships, Players' Championships, the FedEx Cup, Olympic Gold, and countless PGA Tour events, with Scheffler spending much of that time atop the official world golf ranking. From minutes-long bickering to heated arguments over missed reads and costly win calculations, these are the rare moments the world #1 completely lost his cool with Cadie Tedd Scott.
Long before viral videos were even a thing or anyone was getting caught on hot mics, Tedd Scott already knew Scottie Scheffler had this reputation, you know? After spending like over a decade with Bubba Watson and winning 2 Masters together, Ted wasn't even looking for another full-time gig. He was just chilling, totally not searching. But then, oh my gosh, Scheffler reaches out in late 2021 and Ted's like, whoa, hold on, and he actually takes his time before saying yes. His hesitation had nothing to do with Scheffler's talent. It was his temperament.
The very first day that we worked together, I just basically checked him on his attitude and just said, hey, I'm not gonna do this if you don't have a good attitude. That's it.
Scott had watched Scheffler during his early years on tour and knew he could become visibly frustrated when things weren't going his way. For a caddy, that's more than an inconvenience. The wrong personality match can ruin even the most gifted partnership. Instead of pretending it wasn't an issue, Scheffler addressed it head on. He admitted he had work to do. He told Scott he was actively trying to become more patient out there on the golf course, like really working on himself, and he wanted someone who could help keep him grounded, not just, pick clubs and read greens. And get this, their shared Christian faith. Oh my goodness, it played such a huge role in all of it. Both of them have talked so openly about wanting their relationship to be built on something so much bigger than golf. Scott eventually accepted the job. Neither man could have imagined just how successful the partnership would become. Still, no amount of preparation could completely eliminate the emotions that come with competing at the highest level. And the first major crack appeared less than 2 years later. If there was ever proof that frustration can make even the best players snap, this was it. By the time Scheffler arrived at Muirfield Village, his long game was arguably the best in professional golf. Week after week, he ranked near the top of the PGA Tour in strokes gained tee to green, routinely hitting more fairways and greens than anyone else. There was just one problem. He couldn't make a putt. Tournament after tournament slipped away because of an ice-cold putter. Every missed birdie opportunity added another layer of frustration. And by the time the Memorial Tournament reached its later stages, the pressure had begun to boil over. Then Tedd Scott decided to do something unusual. Normally, Scott lets Scheffler read his own putts. But after watching the morning television coverage, Scott believed he'd spotted a subtle trend on the greens. Standing over a 10-foot putt on the par 3/12th, Scott confidently suggested aiming at the right edge. He was certain it wouldn't break left. Seconds later, the putt dove sharply in exactly the opposite direction. Scheffler immediately turned toward his caddy.
What are we doing out here?
It was a rare public glimpse of frustration directed squarely at Tedd Scott. But the awkwardness wasn't over. A few holes later, Scheffler hit one of the best approach shots of the day, stuffing it close to the flagstick. As they walked toward the green, Scott tried to lighten the mood. He joked that he'd memorized the yardage book to make up for his earlier mistake. Scheffler wasn't laughing. Without breaking stride, he looked over and snapped again.
Hey, I'm trying to play golf here.
Years later, Scott would recount boat exchanges on the Sweet Spot podcast. For viewers, though, it was the first indication that even Scottie Scheffler had a breaking point. Little did anyone know, an even more animated exchange was still to come. The next memorable incident didn't even start with a bad yardage or a missed read. No, it started with another missed putt. And Bay Hill? Bay Hill is just... it's famous for this stuff. Firm greens, unpredictable speeds, all that pressure just piling on, it makes every missed chance feel like twice as painful. For Scheffler, whose putting has already been like one of the biggest talking points on tour, the frustration just like totally burst out. After missing another putt, he reacted in this way fans almost never see from the normally composed world number one. And oh my gosh, he just threw his golf ball into the water hazard, like full on tossed it. I know, right? It was this super brief moment where months, literally months of frustration just like spilled over. And then as the cameras followed the group to the next tee, another scene started unfolding. So Scheffler spent the next couple of minutes just talking and talking, like totally animated with Tedd Scott, and he was gesturing all over the place because he was replaying that missed opportunity in his head, and it was all just so clear even though the broadcast microphones couldn't catch every word. But they didn't even have to. The body language told the whole story. Scheffler was venting, and Tedd Scott wasn't interrupting or defending himself or arguing or anything. He was just calmly letting his player talk. Being an elite caddy, it's not all glamorous at all. Like, people think it's all numbers and wind and perfect club choices, and that sounds cool, right? But the real magic is how these veteran caddies know exactly when to just take in all that emotional energy before the next shot. And then Scheffler, he later explained that he wasn't actually frustrated with Scott, not directly. It was all just him dealing with his own putting struggles and those super tough Bay Hill greens. For years, most of Scheffler's emotional moments were like totally hidden away from TV microphones, right? But this one did not stay quiet. Standing on the par 3/16th during the opening round of the Memorial Tournament, and everything just feels so right. He's holding that 7-iron, and oh my gosh, he absolutely flushes it exactly the way he wanted. For a split second, it looked perfect. Then the ball lands, and instead of stopping like it should, it takes this firm first bounce and slowly rolls right into the water guarding the green. Scheffler froze. He couldn't believe what he'd just seen. His immediate reaction wasn't that he'd hit a poor shot. He believed they had made a costly mistake judging the wind. As Tedd Scott walked ahead toward the drop zone, Scheffler called after him, his frustration obvious.
I never thought that I was one.
Scott tried to respond, but Scheffler continued.
I can't hear a word you're saying.
Then came the sentence that instantly spread across golf social media.
Absolutely, if we lost a 7-iron and we get the wind wrong, I'm in the water. I don't think you understand how frustrating that is.
The exchange continued as they walked toward the penalty area. Scheffler kept replaying the mistake in his mind.
Like, there's no way it could curve that much if the wind is so frustrating. We cannot get the wind wrong.
For nearly 2 minutes, Tedd Scott barely interrupted. He just listened, right? And even though some fans were totally criticizing Scheffler for letting out so much frustration at the guy carrying his bag, others were like jumping in to defend him. Elite caddies really do become these emotional outlets during all that competition pressure, and Scott? He never even looked bothered. Sometimes the most important club in the whole bag isn't a driver or a putter at all. It's patience. By the end of the week, the incident had become one of the biggest talking points in golf, not because anyone expected the partnership to end, but because it offered a rare glimpse behind the curtain of what elite competition really looks like. Looking at each incident individually, the exchanges can seem uncomfortable. Taken together, however, they reveal something entirely different. Every outburst follows the same pattern. Scheffler gets frustrated. Tedd Scott absorbs it. The emotions fade. Then they get back to work.